Hey guys, Kiwi here. Today I wanted to break down the most recent episode of Fear the Walking Dead, Season 2, Episode 9, and give my opinions. This episode was pretty much broken into two stories, so I want to talk about Nick and the Colonia first, and I'll get to Strand and everyone else later on. The intro scene is the full version of the sneak peek we got on last week's Talking Dead, and I was honestly surprised that they decided to jump right into it. I figured they would give more context to the viewers, and Nick especially, but he was just as surprised as the rest of us. So Nick stands with this crying girl, who is revealed to be the daughter of the man giving himself up to the wall. He tries to shelter her from the sight, but lets her go as she pushes him away persistently in sight of what is about to unfold, which is honestly so gruesome to think about. The way the colonia is set up is when someone is infected or dying, they give themselves to the wall to help protect the people they love. This wall of the dead is a security system of sorts that protects the colonia from everything else, as outside people trying to come in would just get eaten. There's only one way in and one way out. They protect the dead and the dead protect them. It's almost a cult or religion they've created where they believe that willingly giving themselves to the horde is the only way to survive and keep a certain balance in their relationship with the dead. The chant the community repeats actually translates to, "We come from death, and to death we surrender ourselves." Nick gets explained the significance of the wall by Louisiana, who also reveals that Alejandro was once bitten by a walker and survived, which definitely raised some eyebrows. And on top of it, she claims that she saw it with her own eyes. Nick has been very cautious and skeptical of the colonia's way of life, and honestly less gullible to just instantly jump into it as I thought he would be. Nick found people who think similar to Celia, where they don't fear the dead but they embrace it in a different way. He's constantly questioning what everyone says or believes in the colonia, and he legitimately seems like he wants answers. It seems like he wants to fit in, but he is also determined to see if he will find some sort of truth out of this, or if it's honestly just not worth it for him to bother. During Alejandro's speech near the end of the episode, Nick realizes how much Louisiana, along with the rest of her people, truly believe in him. Nick seemed to stop asking questions when he saw Alejandro's bite on his shoulder. Was Alejandro really bitten by a zombie? Louisiana says that she saw it, but was it actually a zombie? If so, is it a possibility that he did survive a zombie bite, but not because he's immune? People have previously proven that if you get bitten somewhere, like on an arm or leg, just a limb in general, you can possibly chop that limb off before the infection spreads and actually preserve that person's life. Is it possible that he actually carved out his shoulder and cut around the bite, preserving his life in the same way? Maybe he was barely even bitten, and that looks like a pretty nuts gash in his shoulder, so we'll just have to wait and see. This could be the first example that we have of someone getting bitten on their torso and actually being able to cut it out before it spreads to the rest of their body. If this is the case, it would explain why the hole in his shoulder is so big and why everyone believes he is immune. Louisiana did see him get bitten after all, and proving you're immune in a zombie apocalypse definitely seems like the perfect way to get a community of followers who believe in you. Now on to the other story arc, we get our first glimpse of Alicia and Strand in Season 2B, who are convincing Madison to go back to the Abigail after continuously searching for Travis, Chris, and Nick. It seems that Madison has been completely reluctant on finding her family. No surprise here, as it was her entire goal for the first half of Season 2, and to be honest, she's failed, and she gave it her all, but she still failed, which is just why she seems so broken this episode. Part of this episode is her coming to terms with that and accepting it. After a few tequila shots at the hotel bar, she really breaks down and doubts ever seeing Nick again. Her and Strand argue whether Madison was keeping a tight enough grip on Nick or not, whether she wasn't holding on tight enough or if her protectiveness actually drove him away. It's honestly really tough to say for sure which would be the correct answer, if there ever really is one solid answer. Madison states you leave him alone, he starts heading straight towards death, comparing Nick to his father. This leads the viewers to learning the real truth of what happened to Nick's father. In the previous episode, Grotesque, we got a glimpse from Nick's point of view of him finding out about his father's accident and the implications of how it has affected him. In this episode, we have Madison reveal what she believes her husband purposely did and how she's sheltered it from her kids. She believes that her husband purposely committed suicide by crossing the divider on the road and causing the car accident. This is such a horrible thing to even think about, and the fact that she told her kids that he fell asleep on the wheel to shelter them was really considerate, and honestly, it probably helped them quite a lot, and it's hard to imagine the type of weight that Madison has on her shoulders because of this. I believe it's definitely a good thing that Madison opened up and finally told someone about the truth of what happened, because I believe Strand is the first person she's ever told this to. It's true Madison had a few too many drinks in, but it allowed us for the first time to truly see her crack. Her and Strand were both on a level of despair neither had sunk to before, so you gotta think about that when you're looking at them from this perspective. As far as the cliffhanger for this episode goes, I have to say it was pretty goofy. One of the 209 previews actually ended with Madison and Strand getting trapped behind the bar with the zombies, so it was a bit of a disappointment to see that's how the episode actually ended. I expected to see more of a resolution in the situation. The whole reason why they even got into the mess was completely and purposely ridiculous. As soon as Madison threw a glass and then another, most of us knew what it was going to lead to. Strand started mashing keys on the piano and it was just icing on the cake. I would expect something like this happening to some clumsy teenagers, not Madison and Strand. And that's probably the point. We see that everyone has the possibility of blatantly making a mistake, even if it's the two most mature characters on the show. That being said, it doesn't necessarily excuse how cringy it was to watch certain parts of it by any means. Strand and Madison have definitely created a strong bond throughout the series. Madison has learned tons about Strand throughout the first half of Season 2 and even Season 1, and now it was time for Strand to be the one to learn a thing or two about her. I'm surprised how well Strand dealt with the loss of the Abigail. He seemed so reluctant to leave it, and it seemed like such an important part of him. And honestly, I was expecting a huge freak out to see it just vanish. And granted, part of the main reason why he wanted to stay on the ship and keep the ship intact is because he wanted to go back and see Thomas. It is possible that now that Thomas has passed, he doesn't really care that much about the Abigail. I mean, he cared about it because it meant shelter and water and all that, but in reality, he cared about Thomas more than the Abigail, so I guess at this point he just wants to survive and think about what he really cares about in life and what he wants his purpose to be, which seems to be quite a running theme throughout all of the characters currently. I was honestly expecting to almost see the return of Alex and Jack back where they docked the Abigail. I've been eagerly awaiting to see them return. There have been countless throwaway characters in Fear the Walking Dead in Season 1 and especially Season 2A, and almost every person that they come across in general in this show becomes one. Alex and Jack seem to be the most likely out of the list to return in some way, especially since Alex is the survivor of that whole flight BS that they put us through. So I doubt that she wouldn't come back in some way, right? Like I'm just sitting there waiting. But anyways, that's a completely other topic for another time. So what do you guys think of the episode? Let me know. Honestly, I wish that it was a little bit more fast-paced, but I feel like I only want so much action because I'm so used to like The Walking Dead Season 6, Game of Thrones Season 6 type of crazy intense action, so sometimes slow episodes can be good, and especially when you're building up a character's like story arc. And really, I honestly wish that more with Nick would have happened. After Grotesque, I've kind of been sitting on the edge of my seat to see how things are going to go down with him. And although it was entertaining to watch him almost get his arm chopped off, governor style, I really hope that Nick's story arc ends with a huge payoff. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess. I'm keeping my hopes up. I really am. I don't want to see this show fail. I really want to see this show succeed. So I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt, and we'll just have to wait and see. Next week, we're going to see Travis and Chris come into the mix, and hopefully that'll be interesting. But until then, I thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.